A common question that I get asked is how can I or how can my son or daughter improve their spelling? Um, there's no easy answer to this. There's a common answer, and the common answer is one that I do give a lot, which is simply to read more. By reading more, you're recognizing the words, you're looking at the words regularly, um, and that is probably the best way to improve spelling. However, I'm going to go through some little tips and tricks that hopefully will help people improve some of their spelling techniques. So we're going to start with this idea still of reading and writing more. Don't forget that reading doesn't always mean sitting down and reading a full novel. It can be short stories, poetry, sports pages of newspapers. I would recommend that if you're going to go down a newspaper route, it might be worth getting something that might use challenging words rather than just maybe a tabloid. There's so much stuff online now. One little caution about online though is if it's somebody's blog and they're not properly published, it hasn't been checked by an editor, then who's to say that their spelling is any better than yours? So do be careful a little bit of that. Make sure it is from a source that is established and well thought of. So read a range of text types, not just full novels, or don't just think of them as full novels. Another thing to do with reading is when you're in class, follow the text with your eyes. If anybody's reading, don't just sit back, don't be passive, follow it with your eyes, because again, you're looking at the words and you're going to improve your recognition of the words. And finally on this bit, just when writing, just don't settle for not being sure and getting it wrong. Always check to see if you're spelling something correctly. If you're doing some sort of assessment or you don't have a dictionary or you're not allowed a dictionary at that point or you haven't got access to the internet to check, then make sure that if your spellings are corrected, that you go back and you learn it, you change it, you write it a few times. That will help you improve. So they're kind of more the obvious ones. Another one that is quite common is memory aids or mnemonics. I've just put a couple of common ones down just so people realise what they are. So necessary, you can spell that with the first letters from never eat cakes, eat salad sandwiches and remain young. Because big elephants can always understand small elephants. I know there's some variables of that one as well. But it doesn't have to be one. You can make up your own. It doesn't even have to be one where the first letters equal the word. It can be anything, any little silly rhyme, any silly thought that will help you actually remember how to spell the word. Will help. So if there's a common word that you are misspelling, try and think, is there any silly way of me being able to remember this spelling? The next tip is mispronunciation. So that's where we pronounce words, well, they might not be pronounced wrong, but maybe we exaggerate certain areas, or maybe over time pronunciation has changed, so now we pronounce it slightly different. A few examples of this: February, exaggerating the R sound to make sure we put it in there. Library, to make sure we put the R in library. Skizzers, for the C in scissors. And then more of a subtle one, because it's a vowel sound, sentence. A lot of people spell it with an A where the capital is, but it isn't, it's an E, sentence. So again, if there's something you're spelling incorrectly, or there's one of those four, or you know that there's maybe a silent letter in there that always catches you out, start pronouncing it. Just in your head, I still mispronounce things in my head while I'm spelling them just to myself. So there, it is a good trick. Next, this is getting a little bit more complicated, looking at language a little bit more. We have roots of words, which is the main part of the word. Then we have prefixes, which are things that we add to the beginning of words to change the meaning. And we have suffixes, which is things that we add to the end of a word to either change the meaning or the tense, etc. So just an example of this, ironically, a commonly misspelled word is misspell. And that is because people miss out one of the S's because they think that it looks wrong. And actually, if you look, spell is the root of the word, which doesn't change in this case. Miss is the prefix. That's a common bit that we add to the beginning of words to change the meaning. And therefore, if you put those two things together, it does have a double S and it becomes misspell. So just an example of a prefix, a root and a suffix is unhelpful. The prefix is un, help is the root, and full is a suffix. So if you're aware of how to spell help, you can then spell a much longer word over double in length, such as unhelpful. And there's lots of examples of that. So if you're not sure on how to spell a word, or it looks intimidating because it's a particularly long word, think, actually, do I know the root of this word? Can I spell that? And then what am I adding on to the beginning, and or what am I adding on to the end? And that, breaking that down, being aware of that can help you with your spelling. And just here is a table of some common prefixes and suffixes. There are many, many more than this as well. This is literally, well, it's just a small handful of prefixes and suffixes, but it's about the awareness of them, and it only takes a quick Google to find more. So do have a look. Okay, so words that are similar. So if you can link words to other words and think, actually, that's spelt that way, so maybe this is spelt a similar way, can help. And that is because of where words come from, and the study of that is called etymology. So if we look at my example there, a lot of people spell that bottom word wrong. They spell it definite rather than definite. Now we do tend to pronounce it definite, or I do anyway, so I can see why there's people tend to put AT at the end rather than IT. But if you think about it, the middle bit, which is fini, comes from Latin, which you don't actually need to know, but that has, since that time, has influenced words such as finish, which means end, finite, which means that there's a limited amount of, and definite kind of means you're absolutely sure, like you don't need any other answers. You've got a definite answer, you're sure, and that's from the same root as finish and finite. So I'm not suggesting that you do this for all words, but while spelling definite, since I found that link, I always think of finish, and I'd never spell it wrong now. So there might be other words which link to the word you're spelling that you do know how to spell, and therefore it will help you with your spelling of that. So just a really quick summary. Read more, follow words with your eyes, get word recognition, write more, making sure that you check and correct any spellings. Beware of the root of a word and how you may use prefixes and suffixes to change or modify the meaning. And think about other words you know which you're trying to spell, which may be connected. There's one I've missed off that section, and that is, of course, the mnemonics, the memory aids, making sure that you make up your own little rhymes and never eat cakes, eat salad sandwiches, and remain young.